You flick a lighter, one thumb, half a second, and fire just appears. You don't even look at it. Now, here's the strange part. You're holding something that took your species nearly 2 million years to control, and there's a black smudge of carbon on your thumb you haven't noticed yet. For 99% of the time humans have existed, what you just did was impossible. So here's the question. Nobody actually asks, what was the real story of fire? Not the sparks and cavemen version you got in school, the actual psychological weight of it. Because here's what they lied to you about. Fire didn't make us comfortable. The first time one of our ancestors stood near it, instead of running, it was probably the most terrifying thing any creature had ever done. Not brave, terrified. And the reason that matters is weirder than you think. Let's start with how old this actually is, because the number just changed. In June 2026, a study revealed evidence of fire use at Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa, dated between 107 and 1.79 million years ago, pushing back the known timeline by hundreds of thousands of years. The team, led by Dr. Leora Kolska-Horwitz of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and Professor Michael Chazan of the University of Toronto, developed an innovative technique to detect signs of burns on fossilized animal bones found deep inside the cave. 1.79 million years, let that sit. The hominins doing this weren't modern humans. They weren't even close. They were Homo erectus, and they weren't passive observers of natural fires. They were actively engaging with fire and incorporating it into their lives. But here's the part that nobody in your history class got to. The team isn't suggesting these hominins could make fire on demand. They think they carried burning vegetation, possibly flaming grasses, into the cave from naturally occurring wildfires on the African savanna. They didn't create fire. They stole it. That image matters. These creatures were walking toward an active wildfire, picking something burning up off the ground, carrying it home. That's not a discovery. That's a choice to do the one thing every instinct in your body screams not to do. Once you have fire, you have a problem nobody anticipated. You have to keep it alive. In 2004, archaeologist Naama Goren Inbar of Hebrew University led a team that excavated a site in northern Israel called Gesher B'nai Yaakov. They found burned seeds, wood, and flint clustered in specific spots, likely hearth locations dating to nearly 790,000 years ago. Wood from 6 plant types was burned, at least 3 of which were edible: olive, wild barley, and wild grape. Someone wasn't just warming themselves, they were tending something, feeding it, choosing which wood burns longer. The fire had become a living thing. They were responsible for something that could die if you ignored it. That's not a tool, that's a relationship. And honestly kind of genius, because the moment you're responsible for keeping something alive, you can't leave. You have a reason to stay in one place, to cooperate, to not wander off alone into the dark. Fire didn't just warm us, it anchored us. Your brain, the one you're using right now to follow this, might exist specifically because your ancestors started cooking. In 2009, Harvard biological anthropologist Richard Wrangham published Catching Fire, arguing that cooking wasn't a consequence of becoming human, it was the cause. His case, cooking made eating faster and easier, wrung more caloric benefit from the same food, and was vitally important for supporting the outsized human brain, which consumes a quarter of the body's energy. The timing lines up eerily well. The biggest leap in brain size occurs with Homo erectus at 1.8 million years ago, right when evidence of fire use starts appearing. Then in 2011, Rachel Carmody at Harvard's Department of Human Evolutionary Biology ran the experiment that actually proved it. Over 40 days, she fed groups of mice identical food prepared 4 ways: raw and whole, raw and pounded, cooked and whole cooked, and pounded, and tracked body mass. The result: cooked meat yielded 10 to 15% more calories than raw. Cooked sweet potatoes, a whopping 30% more caloric than uncooked ones. Same food, more calories. Just because it met flame first, your brain didn't get big because you got smarter. You got smarter because your ancestors figured out how to pre-digest their food with fire before it even entered their mouths. You are, in the most literal sense, a creature that fire built. Sponsors message. This video was brought to you by Fire. Fire, we've been using it for 1.79 million years, and we still haven't read the instructions. Now let's get back to it. Here's the question that actually matters though. We spend a lot of time talking about fire as a physical technology, warmth, cooking, light. But what happened to the hours it created? Before fire, the day ended when the sun went down. After fire, you suddenly had 4 extra hours of extended wakefulness. What do you do with that? Work, forage in the dark? No. Polly Weissner, an anthropologist at the University of Utah, went to find out. In 2014, she published a study in PNAS comparing 174 day and night conversations among the Juhonsi Bushmen of southern Africa, a hunter-gatherer society whose daily life closely mirrors what most of human prehistory looked like. The results showed a dramatic split. Daytime talks centered on practicalities and sanctioning gossip, but firelit activities at night centered on conversations that evoked the imagination, helped people remember and understand others in their external networks. healed rifts of the day, and conveyed information about cultural institutions. Over 80% of talk around the campfire involved stories, often interspersed with music and dance. Fire didn't just cook food, it cooked storytelling. It created the world's first dedicated social hour. Every single night, where the only possible activity was sitting close together and talking, myths, memory, the dead, people who lived far away, things that hadn't happened yet. Fire gave us imagination as a group activity. You know what that sounds like? Netflix. A podcast. This video. The format is 400,000 years old. You probably think the story of fire is that humans were clever enough to master a dangerous natural force and use it for survival. Smart apes, big brains, warmth, and meat, a triumph. But is that actually what happened? Because look at it again. Nearly 2 million years ago, something walked toward a wildfire instead of away from it. Not because it understood what fire was, not because it had a plan. It did something that defied every survival signal its biology had, and then it kept doing it. It carried burning grass home. It stayed up past dark, talking to strangers. It ate hot food with a smaller jaw that could no longer crush the raw world. Fire didn't make us more capable of surviving nature. Fire made us dependent on something that could kill us. We traded the raw world for a lit one, and we never found the door back. Every species on Earth is still adapted to live in nature as it exists. We're the only ones who 1.79 million years ago quietly began building a different one and have been unable to stop since. Etymology aside, the word focus comes directly from the Latin word for hearth, the central fireplace of a Roman home. When you tell someone to focus, you're literally telling them to return to the fire. You scroll before bed, you watch something, you talk to someone across a screen, you stay up later than you should. You don't even think about it. Wiesner's Juhansi Bushmen didn't think about it either. The fire was just there, and so they gathered, and so the story started, and the 4 extra hours filled themselves without anyone deciding they would. The format changed, the instinct didn't. You're doing exactly what Homo erectus did in a cave in South Africa 1.79 million years ago, sitting near a warm glowing light long after the useful part of the day is over, listening to someone tell you something that doesn't need to be true to matter. One thumb, half a second. You still haven't noticed the smudge on your thumb. You never do. Once you had fire, you had a place to gather, a circle of light in the dark, with everyone inside it, warm, talking, telling stories. But what happened when someone inside that circle didn't come back? What did the first humans do when the fire was still burning? And one of the people who helped carry it home was gone. That question is older than language, and we made a whole video about it. It turns out the answer says more about what makes us human than almost anything else. If you want to keep asking the questions, nobody thought to ask the ones that make you feel like the ground shifted slightly under your feet. There's a subscribe button somewhere on this screen. No pressure, but the next question is already waiting.